Yogi, you were so good a couple weeks ago, we had to bring you back. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
So 2 games against the Pac-12 South so far for the Cougars, now the 3rd against UCLA. What's your some of your takeaways from what you've seen of the Cougars so far through 2 games?
They've been fun to watch, man. I mean, not surprised, but they play so hard, And I've always felt this really since I was playing, man. That you are a reflection of your head coach, and that's the effort that you play with, it's the attitude, that's the chip, that's the personality, and you could see, BYU has always competed well, but Kalani's got an edge to him that is awesome, and you saw from him, right, when you watched the TV at least last weekend with his energy, how infectious it is, and you saw how hard the kids played, and yes, it was a sloppy game, but I like that about them. You can tell that they're enjoying. They're enjoying playing for him, and they're playing their tails off.
I think you can really pick that up as especially for fans when you have former players that aren't even associated with the program that are like, man, they're having fun. Everything looks good. From an outsider looking in, I would go and play for that guy. I would suit up, and that's how Kalani makes I think everybody feel. Yogi, let's talk about this quarterback matchup. Taysom Hill, who is the best quarterback in the universe, against Josh Rosen.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, What I like, and I think for BYU fans, if they watched the game last weekend, I get to call UNLV versus UCLA, and Johnny Stanton's the quarterback at UNLV, and he and Taysom Hill are very similar, actually. You look at their body type, look at their game. Taysom's probably a little better of a passer, but they're both guys that can hurt you with the zone read game. And for UCLA, where they struggled is that they had a lot of guys banged up. Tack McKinley, their best, edge rusher didn't play. Deion Hollins didn't really play. Eddie Vanderdoes got banged up, didn't play in the second half. Cameron Judge, their veteran outside backer, didn't play. Jalil Wadud, probably their most instinctive safety, didn't play. But those are a lot of players on the defensive side. And when you play a 4-man front, which is what UCLA plays for the most part, you're playing kind of this one-gap defense, meaning everybody has a role and a responsibility. And the hardest part when you're playing that style of defense is to stop quarterback runs, zone read game, because nobody necessarily has him. There isn't a guy for a guy. Right. You can't, quote-unquote, two-gap it. And if you're a D lineman, kind of be able to peek one side of the guard or the center, or the other side of the guard or the center or the tackle, whoever you're lined up against. And UCLA got burned a couple times, and you could see UNLV and how Johnny Stanton read the zone read, so it's a little nerdish for football, but a lot of times in zone read, people think you're always reading the defensive end. Well, you can read a lot of people. You can read the most intense defensive player, the guy you just don't want to block. Right. So they were actually reading off the nose tackle, off the 3 technique, a variety of players on the defensive line. And my point is that it made it hard. And that is a lot of what BYU does with their quarterback runs. So that's advantage BYU, in my opinion, especially if players aren't going to play. It sounds like a lot of those guys are going to play this weekend, which is good for UCLA. But that's the first thing that kind of jumped out to me mid-game. And then to jump on Josh, he's gifted, man. You guys are going to love watching him play. He's missed some stuff through 2 games. He's left a bunch of yards on the field, just some easy things. Hasn't had a ton of help from his wideouts. They've had some drops. Still hasn't figured out, who his go-to guy is. We haven't seen that yet. Each week it's been somebody different, per se, which could be good, but I still don't know if they have somebody on third down. When Kalani's playing man-to-man press coverage, who he knows he's going to go to. And that's advantage BYU. With the style of defense they play, they're so aggressive. There's so much pressure up front. From a corner standpoint, from a nickel defender standpoint, trying to disrupt the timing of the throw game. So if they can do that against Josh, they're going to have a chance. But if they try to bring pressure and Josh is on, he'll gash him all night.
Man, you're making me that much more excited. I already
I'm
came
hungry
in
for the game now.
Yeah, I came in.
Lunch.
Came in more coming in a little bit more confident. Yogi, you as you're talking about the players that missed this game, the last game. I'm kind of going off topic here, but I'm starting to wonder, is this the consequence of 2 Power 5 teams playing against each other and so early in the season? If teams start to really rethink that and kind of where that balance is going to be in the future, because you have to have essentially these games for the resume, right, to build up your resume if your conference is a little bit weak or whatever the case is. But at the same time, what are you willing to give up? You're risking, injuries and potentially, your players for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change, though, man. I mean, honestly, I think that it's especially in the Pac-12, it's kind of accepted by every team for the most part. They want these types of games. They want big non-conference games, and even the teams that aren't, back or great contenders. I mean, look at Colorado. They're going to Michigan this week. You look at Oregon State and even going out of conference to play Minnesota on a Thursday or Friday night to start the season off, whatever it was. That's just going to be the culture. I don't think that's going to shift at all. I think the teams that don't play games like that, like some teams in the SEC, obviously the Big 12, they're going to have to shift. I think we saw with the playoff year one when Baylor and TCU were kind of on the outside looking in. You looked at their schedule, and it was a big reason why. Mm-hmm. So no, I don't think it's going to change. I think from an injury standpoint, it's kind of part of it, and yeah, it's a bummer, but you got to get your guys right. I mean, I'm calling UW this weekend, and they look as good as any team on film, right? But they haven't been tested, and they're playing Portland State, and they run the pistol, and there's elements that will test their defense, but you still don't know, and I think that it makes your offseason better when you've got a big game you can circle, whether it's Arizona you're playing week one, or your BYU, your Texas A&M, or your Alabama, and I think it kind of changes the dynamics of your preparation, your focus. So if I was a coach, I would do it all day long. I'd schedule those games forever.
Yogi Roth of the Pac-12 Network is on BYU Sports Nation. Last year, BYU had an interesting game plan for UCLA, almost bipolar in that they shut down Josh Rosen, who threw for 106 and had 3 picks, but Paul Perkins ran for 219. So what kind of defensive game plan do you expect from BYU this time around?
Well, I think Noah and Kalani, they are who they are. It's very similar to Utah. You guys have been watching those teams play for Utah for a long time. And, the thing that I wouldn't do is, so basically to answer the question, they're going to play an aggressive front four. They're going to try to just bring pressure with the guys up front, bring an extra guy here and there, and then play press on the outside, try to disrupt timing. That's who they are. What I would never do against Josh is I wouldn't bring that extra guy a lot. I wouldn't bring pressure because he's so smart, especially now with their new offense this year. You look at teams when they pressure him, he can gash you, and that's what I would not do if I was playing against him. So I'd expect him to play their same defense, And I think when you go back and you watch the film from last year, everything was a first for Josh, right? It was his first season. It was his first game. It was he came off of a epic week one against Virginia, struggled against UNLV, struggled obviously against BYU, and people were talking about him for the Heisman after the first game of the season last year. So I think it was just a growth thing that happens with first-year players. So I think he's going to be fine. I actually think he's going to play his best game of the season after what he did the first 2 weeks. I think, I think he's a special player. I really do. So I don't know if you're necessarily going to shut him down. And they run the rock. This is a really good offense. I think it's one of the top 4 offenses in the country in terms of where would I want to play. I was a quarterback. I look at Notre Dame, I look at Clemson, nice. I look at Florida State and UCLA because they alter their tempo so much. They can go. You'll see it. They'll be in 3 tight end sets. They'll be unbalanced with kind of an extra offensive tackle, and then they'll be 4 or 5 wide. And then they'll change their tempos. I mean, it's a really fun offense to study and to watch. So I think he's going to play really well. I think again for BYU, it's unforced errors. They don't kill themselves. Last week they win the game. Same thing with. Pretty much a lot of games around the country, and it's kind of been my thing this year when I watch football. I'm like, all right, who just doesn't screw it up? Who doesn't turn it over? Who doesn't have false starts? Who doesn't have bad penalties? And you referenced the targeting penalty kind of bringing me in on the show. I think that's going to hurt them. Losing 2 players for the first half that play football. They play a lot of football for this team. So I think it's advantage UCLA, and if they can get going early, I don't know if BYU's built to make a big comeback in the passing game. I'm not saying they're not, but I haven't seen a passing game that's really scary through the first couple weeks.
Yeah, so far not much there. But Yogi, we appreciate the time, great insight, and good luck on the UW Portland State call there.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks.